Good evening, everyone. My name is John Tibbs, and I'm the event coordinator here at Mhao Robinson Booksellers. Before we begin, I would of course like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is located here in Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Inuit, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, of course, Mhao Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. We have approximately 300 readers this evening, and I am the least interesting person who will be up at the podium tonight, so I will rush through my opening comments to get to the real meat of the evening. But we are delighted to be teaming up with so many incredible people here tonight to present this event. Huge thanks to Roseway and Fernwood Publishing for publishing this collection in the first place, to the Land and Labor Collective, represented by 3 of their wonderful editors who are here tonight as well to speak. And of course, to our good friends at Plume Winnipeg. This is being presented as part of Thin Air 2025, the Winnipeg International Writers Festival. So we're always delighted to have an opportunity to partner with them. And a representative from the festival will be up in just a little bit. Not to mention the fact that we are also delightfully teaming up with the wonderful people at the Manitoba Energy Justice Coalition, who are helping to co-present this event, and you'll be hearing from them as well later on this evening. Just a few very quick housekeeping notes before we begin. We do have any number of readers here tonight of various sizes. So the one thing I would recommend is that please feel free, the most important thing is that we hear your words tonight. So feel free to adjust this microphone to a height that's comfortable for you. I will demonstrate like so. Thank you all. We want to make sure that we can hear your wonderful words as well. I will be lurking behind the screen here, so first of all, don't be disturbed by my presence, and secondly, if you are having any issues with the microphone, I'll be out right away to help you out. The one thing I will point out is that there are any number of people here tonight who have contributed to this volume, so rather than a formal signing at the end of the evening, just to put this in your brain, we'll actually have a rather informal signing in that all of you folks will be able to approach any contributors to the volume and get them to inscribe your books. For those readers who are here, one more demonstration. We have a large container of signing pens right here, so if you do need something with which to write your name, please do avail yourself of a pen. I now have the enormous pleasure of inviting up somebody who has made an essential contribution to this book. That is, of course, Tanya Andrzejko, who is the Acquisitions and Development Editor at Fernwood Publishing, who will offer a few words of introduction. Please join me in welcoming Tanya.
Hello. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. My name is Tanya Andrzejko. I'm an editor at Fernwood Publishing, and Roseway is our literary imprint. So I work for both, I suppose. I have the pleasure, the enormous pleasure of working with the Land and Labor Poetry Collective, and I'll get right on it. This is an anthology of poetry by workers that reveals the ways that the climate crisis makes work harder and scarcer and more intense and more dangerous and more uncertain. The 3 of the 6 editors of the collective are here. Melanie, Dennis Unrau, Jamie Paris, and Samantha Jones, and Sam is visiting from Calgary, so thanks for making this big trip. Even though it's unusual for Fernwood and Roseway to publish poetry, when Mhao and co-editor Kelly Shepard approached us with this, we knew it would be good. Its political contributions are many, but to me, one of the most important is that this work clarifies our shared reality, which in this day and age can feel very fractured, and our obligations to each other as workers in a context of a huge consolidation of power that's taking us farther and farther away from climate justice. So with this anthology, we're shown with the intimacy and detail that only poetry can yield that climate change is here. And poetry can take us inside the torment, for example, of watching horses choke on smoke, the shared vulnerability of a taxi driver and a banker caught together in a cab during a torrent of unexpected rain, or the pain of seeing precious life squandered, like the sushi made with a dying species of fish sliding uneaten from a serving platter into a garbage can. These poems are windows into what it means to be in a new climate reality, and they can galvanize us in a way that pure argument or pleading can't. And it's a way to commit us to a renewed working class solidarity that's up to the task of the struggle for a livable planet. So tonight, we'll hear from the editors and over 23 poets whose work is in this great anthology. And I'm so grateful for those of you who have contributed to this brilliant anthology, for being here and reading your poetry and sharing the magnitude of this work with us. A special thank you to McNally Robinson and John Taves for hosting us and selling these books and giving this event so much hallmark McNally care. I also want to thank the Manitoba Arts Council for supporting this project with meaningful funding. And thank you also to MEJC and also to Plume for making this part of the programming. Really appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to pass it to the editors of the Land and Labor Poetry Collective. Thank you.
Oh, wow, there's lots of you. Okay. So I don't know if we're the most interesting people, but we are going to talk a little bit. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about what made us want to work on the anthology, what were sort of the highlights of the project, and why is this book important now. So I'm going to invite Mel and Sam to come on up. There's no non-artificial way to do this. So I'm going to start with the first question. What made me want to work on this anthology? I'm an academic, a Shakespearean by training, and I care deeply about writing development. So what got me excited about working on this project is I do a lot of assignments, creative assignments in my classes. I do a lot of assignments that are sort of on essays and different ways of thinking about how to represent knowledge. And I talk to a lot of young writers who are excited when they get good feedback on work, but then don't think of themselves as writers. And that's something I actually really worry about at this political moment, that there's so many young people who are so talented, not just young people, old people are talented too. There's so many talented people who have something to say, but have already begun the conversation by assuming that their voice isn't needed in the conversation. And I saw this as an opportunity to say no. Most poets just need a little bit of time, a little bit of development, a couple of workshops, and a friendly editor, and they can tell us wonderful things about their life, their work, and how the climate is changing.
Yeah, so maybe on the same question, for me, my background's in the sciences. I'm a geologist by training, and so I'm intersecting with climate, but oftentimes in a very different way, in a very different scale than the poetry in this book. And so being able to work on the immediate and close to the person is a really different way of interacting with that subject than I get to do in my day-to-day research. And as an academic as well, we spend a lot of time sometimes alone. And so being invited to be part of a collective where I knew I would get to make something with others and really share around building something with many voices was something that I was really craving after working on my PhD a lot of times in isolation. So I really appreciate the community this has brought. So maybe like to say a few words on that?
Oh, I just noticed we have labeled water cups there. It's very safety. That's good. Yeah, I love these points already, and I guess I would say I have an interest in work poetry. I'm also a scholar, and I wrote a book about oil workers who write poetry, and I sort of wanted to continue along those lines. And there were these great anthologies published in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. edited in Canada by Tom Wayman of Work Poetry. And there's a bit of a resurgence, I think, happening around work writing right now. So we saw some cool recent anthologies, one called The COVID Journals and one called Hustling Verse. And I was excited to make a contemporary work anthology that speaks to the issues of our time, like climate change, and also that sort of broadens what it is that we're talking about when we talk about work, to think about being inclusive of care work, unpaid work, migrant work, marginalized and racialized workers, and just open up this concept, I think, as a way of building solidarity.
So if I was to say what the highlights of the anthology are, first off, Mel's book, by the way, is a very good book. Rough Poets, go get it. It's wonderful. If I was to say what the highlight of the project was for me, it was watching the first run of poems come in. We got way more submissions than we could possibly publish. Some of the work was just spectacular. Some of it I won't mention, but some of the work was just spectacular. And what struck me was there's a place that's needed to collect these thoughts. And there was a kind of depth that I don't see all the time in our political discussions. I don't always see on Twitter. I don't always see, even in major media that has time to really think about what it wants to do, where people were trying to make that emotional connection around complicated issues. And just seeing a couple hundred people do that kind of made me feel like, okay, yes, Rome is burning, but maybe we're not all fiddling. Maybe some of us are doing something else while it burns, and maybe that's enough. Maybe if enough of us do that, we can start singing our way to something better.
I feel like we're all the same height and we didn't plan that. That's like great. That's like we don't have to move. Maybe I'm the shortest one. Yeah, and I think we picked sort of a few different highlights to showcase because there's so many, and we worked on this project in so many different stages, and each of the editors sort of was involved in many parts or specialized in certain parts, and so depending on who you talk to, you'll probably hear a whole bunch of different lists of awesome things. One of the things for me that really stood out was being able to take time to intentionally seek the voices that are not often included in the discussion of what is labor. And I think it really broadened the collection and the scope of what we're talking about. I know from my own experience, becoming disabled in the last few years, becoming a mom almost a decade ago, the way that I think about all the labors that I do have changed. And then when you think about that in the context of climate change, there's all kinds of different tasks and dynamic things happening. And I know that's, you know, just my story. Everyone has their own individual stories. And so being able to go seek out those contributions and then take some time to work with people to help them bring their vision and voice into the poem they wanted to create was definitely a highlight for me. So I very much appreciate that opportunity.
So one aspect of this project was that we ran some workshops, and some of the folks who are reading today attended workshops, which was just in itself a highlight for me. Sam and I ran several workshops. We also collaborated with some folks who ran workshops, Ashley Kilovak-Savard, Paul Akpamute, and Adesoji Babalola. I ran workshops online, and there was one at Queen's University, there was one in Brandon, and one in Winnipeg. And I'm going to tell a story about the one I did in Regina. Sabrina, I'm going to single you out just a little and say that I used one of your poems. So this is Sabrina Spenser Smith, who's one of the contributors, as an example. It was a poem about roofing, from a prairie fire issue was where I had read it, and I shared it with the room. And there were 2 people in that room who had experienced tropical storms and done cleanup after a hurricane, and had, you know, very like visceral stories about what it's like to do that work. And I just loved seeing that connection that was almost, I didn't get it actually because I hadn't done that work, but seeing how people were connecting through those poems and then writing their own poems was really neat.
So our third question is, why is this book important now? Now, very now. And this is a hard question to answer, to be honest with you. I mean, we can point to the politics of it, but I think I would start with my first introduction to climate change. It was way back in the late 1990s, to date myself a little bit, and we were still talking about the climate change debate, or at very least our professors were. The students in the room were talking about how our future was being burned away. We were talking about leave the oil in the ground. We were talking about Canada having a green future. And we were starting to make these tentative connections between the project of reconciliation and the project of environmentalism. And I left those conversations thinking, we young people are going to change the world. We're going to get these jobs, we're going to go to these companies, and we're going to fix it all. And then I waited. And then I waited some more. And then it kept warming. And then the national conversation with our last government was not, will we keep the oil in the ground, but how many pipelines will we build? And I realized nothing gets done until people feel it. Nothing gets done until they can connect their life to the crisis. And I think this book is really important right now because I got to see a group of people, some of them with PhDs, some of them with non-traditional academic backgrounds, some of them coming from minority communities, some of them coming from traditional settler communities, who got it, who understood the connection between the work they do and the world they want to live in. So when I say, why is this book important now? I would say because we need to get back in the space, not of explaining the science is clear. We have to explain the emotion of climate change. What does it feel like to live on a warming planet? And until we can get the metaphors right, I worry that people who have a vested interest in not understanding will keep pretending they don't know that the debate is over.
I think what I'll say, I'll keep it short, but what I want to say about right now is I think it's becoming very apparent that all of the intersecting stressors that are happening are sometimes compounding and sometimes competing, and something that was really stark for me was when we were shutting down a lot of things during the beginning of the pandemic. We also were generating a huge amount of garbage. And so we were having this trade-off of like, well, we're not traveling as much, but we're throwing away all of these plastics, but we need to do this to save lives, right? And so sometimes when we need to act quickly and we need to deploy these big solutions, there are also these trade-offs. And then when those things all intersect, I feel like, particularly in that moment, a lot of the climate conversation ended up being like, okay, we have to hold on for a minute because this is very urgent, we have to deal with it right now. And then I was hoping, we're gonna also get back to the climate conversation eventually. And it seems like it didn't come back as strong as I had hoped. And I think we see now, again, more things, right? The cost of living crisis. And so it's like there's one thing after another being layered on. And I guess if you don't figure out how to start trying to deal with multiple things, but also allow people to speak to what they're passionate about, speak to their strengths. We don't have to do everything, all of us, right? We can speak up and share stories where we feel comfortable and where we feel like they have impact. Then hopefully we can spread around this work and make it a little easier on all of us as a group. So, and I also hope that this is something that will help showcase some of the types of work that people have been doing that has become more recognized as we get more and more pressed for time and resources. And people realize, well, now my routine is extra complicated because I have to go out before a certain time because it's too hot, or, you know, all of these different things that make things complicated. And a lot of those labors are invisible. Maybe they're domestic labors or things that we were able to maybe afford and outsource at one point in time, but it's not possible anymore. And we're seeing how all of these intersecting things come together. And so I'm hoping that this will showcase some of those things for people if you've not seen it yet, but also really remind us that we're going to have to start dealing with multiple things at a time, because unfortunately things are accelerating and we've got to be dynamic in our response. So hopefully that's not too depressing, but I believe we can do it if we work as a team, right? And I'll take a bit for each of us.
Some really brilliant things have already been said here, but I guess I'll just say quickly, I think this book is important because we have just lived through a summer of wildfires and evacuations and smoke. And even if our discourse is frustratingly not as full with climate as it perhaps should be, I think we all have a different awareness maybe after this summer. And I hope it's a moment to engage on this. We also it's becoming increasingly clear that it's like the billionaires against the rest of us. So, and you know, I include climate in this category of like class warfare. So, you know, let's just come together, and I hope we can be some small part of a movement of working people coming together around these big issues that are not impossible to face. So I think that's it for our 3 questions. I'm just going to transition us to what's next. First, I feel we need to just mention our other co-editors and acknowledge the work that they did. So they can't be here with us tonight, but the other editors of this anthology are Moni Barrar, Jenna Butler, and Kelly Shepard. And it was an honor to work with us. So I think we have about 20 readers. We've had a couple of people who couldn't make it. We're going to go through the readers in alphabetical order. We'll take turns introducing everyone. And we're going to try to run this kind of like a slam poetry event, if you're familiar with the form. So we will introduce the reader, and we'll also mention who's next, so that the next person can be like ready to go. And then as the reader's coming up, we all cheer. And then as the reader's walking back, we cheer again. That's how it goes. And I think that's it. And Jamie's going to start us off.
Okay, so the one thing I will mention is we've got a lot of readers. Let's not get anxious about that. This is a wonderful thing. All of you have 3-ish minutes. If something goes slightly over 3-ish minutes, my God, do I not care? Slow down. However fast you think you need to go, you don't. We're all here for you. So please, just take your time. It is sometimes, I think, auditorially difficult to process poetry, especially because many of you are page poets, for lack of a better term. So I do think we want to just give the audience a chance. Speaking of giving people a chance, I'm going to butcher names. I apologize. It is not a lack of respect on my part. It is simply a lack of literacy. With that, Levy and Mike will be coming up next.
Rise, get organized. In the first 10 minutes, you wrap enough bread for the boss to pay your daily wage. And you wonder where the rest of the work hours went on your way home, tired and drained. In spite of the wealth that your labors create, your life's on the brink of falling into a pit. And the harder you work, the deeper you sink, while the boss man wallows in wealth. Oppressed you are and mired in precarity. The wealth you made bought your boss's Lamborghini, while the super and the lead hand think you're lazy when you question the system and want to be free. You stare at the conveyors moving at speed, carrying loads of profit, power, prestige, while what you're paid is just enough for the day. So in pain tomorrow, you'll be back and you'll stay. All these millions in food that you're packing, you're barely allowed a bit to take home, with a little defect all thrown into the garbage, while the working people are starved to the bone. Who stole all the gold that you dug from the mines, or the swords and the guns that you made with calloused hands? And for your yearning for freedom, justice, and peace, who will fire you to starve you or send you to jail? So rise and liberate your hammered body and mind, and let the greedy tremble with solidarity's might. From workplace oppression, justice and equality are forged to win and build a new world.
All right, I know who I'm calling if I ever get an audiobook. Like Bagamery and Myla will be next.
Serving La Barriere Park. After we arrived at the park on the southwest edge of Winnipeg, we bound across the lawn to the LaSalle River, meant for the footbridge. Bong creek, bong creek, bong creek, bong creek, bong! The bridge is showing its age, spirit of 68. This will be a good place to take people on the Bio Blitz next week. Maybe it will inspire them to adopt a park for their project. When they do, I'll be there for them. The supportive coordinator who shares biological information, the one who gets them the tools for doing the work, a gardener in my own right, who nurtures the seeds of ability and curiosity they all carry. My bare head swells in to take it in the plants, and I think, thank goodness for iNaturalist. With the push of a button, I can capture sound, render light, color, and shape in megapixels, the better to contribute to the human project of bettering our home through citizen science. Look ahead, up, down, behind, into the woods off the path. I hope to see no small number of native species. My ears are perked for the sound of birds making themselves known through their own words, and mammals too. No snakes are expected. This isn't Narcisse. I practice my photography. I know eastern gray squirrels well. They don't want their pictures taken. They could almost blend into the tree trunks, except for their rusty faces and snowy bellies. They dance up and down the trees, the pillars of their lives, anchored to each by the grooves in the bark. I'm sure the squirrels are grateful for that. Bur oak, that's a native tree. So is eastern cottonwood. Until just a few weeks ago, I didn't know exactly 24 species of trees were native to Manitoba. Blue spruce is common here. I learned only later that it was introduced, but it fits in by looking like the homegrown hero, the white spruce. Wait, that's a thing we shouldn't have. Common burdock. Here in Manitoba, it is one weed that doesn't make too much of a wall for other life. It doesn't poke you, it doesn't keep everything else from breathing, it doesn't rub its creep in your face. Wait again. On the eastern edge adjoining the farm, there is a poker, European buckthorn. It puts its own chemicals into the soil, making it harder for other plants to grow, and making the climate crisis that much nastier in southern Manitoba. I feel it with the tip of my thumb, and I wince. Snap! Buckthorn, I'll be back for you, even if I have to get knee-deep in snow, and can only put pink flagging tape on you, so someone else can see you for what you are, so they can take you out of the ground.
So fun to hear live. I love it. Snowy bellies. Snowy bellies is such a great. Oh wow. Myla Chartrand and Jean is up next.
Hi, this is May I Help You? Mountains of plastic float in the ocean. Mountains of plastic pile up in the back. Gallons of oil spilled, wasted, ruined. Clean up on aisle 3. Mounting tensions as frontiers creep closer to the summit. Mounting heat as ice turns to liquid gold. Invade, drill, extract, restock the shelves. Is any of this worth it? Can I do anything from my 15-30 an hour vantage point? If I stop, someone else will step in to do it and I'll be screwed. The cogs do what they're told and the machine wastes on. Miss saying I never knew any of this. Miss when winters didn't seem so warm. Miss lying to myself about the exponential worsening of it all. Miss when I didn't know how much trash there really is.
Just gorgeous, just gorgeous. So we have Jean, Clipsham, and Renee next.
Get it right here. My poem is called Climate Action is My Retirement Job. It's written in a pantoum form, which is a Malaysian verse form. Old ladies go through life unseen. We can get away with lots. I wonder if this force is green, creating climate movement plots. We can get away with lots because raging grannies are so cute. Creating climate movement plots? Beneath gray hair, we are astute. Raging grannies are so cute. Are we seeing any shift? Beneath gray hair, we are astute. Some climate action is what we wish. Are we seeing any shift? Stealthiness seems so futile. Some climate action is what we wish, yet our measures are on trial. Stealthiness seems so futile. I wonder if this force is green, yet our measures are on trial. Old ladies go through life unseen.
I love that piece for so many reasons, but one of them is just like this return to form. And the way that the repetition works, I love it so much. So we have Renee, Cronley, I believe, up, and Jennifer next. Pardon? Oh, Amanda next. Yeah.
Okay, this is called 911. This is an emergency. Communities still bleed from the last round of cuts to our departments. We can't coagulate quickly enough between 911 callers, police officers, firefighters, and paramedics when our count is this low. Call volumes are rising like the temperatures of our longer summers, and lightning keeps striking tired, dry litters of deadfall, and everything we rely on is at the mercy of greedy flames. When trees and their underbrush burn, tiny solid and liquid particles spread and suspend midair. So every breath is an invitation to climb our bronchial tree and make a nest in our alveoli. They can eat away at our insides in a way that guilt never can. Medical oxygen is in high demand, so we have to ration our supply and take a match to our conscience, making the difficult decision of who will have to go without, and condemn ourselves to the role of involuntary moral arsonists. The phone lines are ablaze with pleas for help, burning millions of hectares from our reach. It's painful to pick up these calls, knowing we're dropping them at the same time.
I wish more poems had references to arson. Maybe that says something about my mood right now. We just did Amanda Donnelly? Amanda Donnelly, and then Kristian next.
deep tissue. What we've forgotten about pain is that it is only the check engine light at the end of the wire. And while I have tactility enough to feel the direction of your muscle fibers, to dissect you into layers of differing densities without breaking the skin with only my fingertips, mind you, I cannot feel your pain. So when you ask me to root out the incorporeal, I'll seek instead the subtle shift in your breath's rhythm, resistance in place of pliability. Glide, compress, lift, bend, following the braille of your body's story through the peaks and valleys of your bony landmarks. Hidden places unsafe for habitation. It's there that the villains of your flesh play tug of war with your bones, joints boarded up like derelict buildings and sinewy contractures sewn by repetition. Designed to move and ruin through idling, another mechanical marvel in disrepair.
I'm just going to take a second here to embarrass an old friend. I'm going to introduce Kristian and Enright, and I just want to say we've known each other since I was in 9th grade at Gordon Bell High School. We basically bonded arguing over Romeo and Juliet. He was wrong, I am right, that's why I'm Shakespearean now. And it means the world to me to be in the same collection of poetry as Kristian, who is one of my favorite poets in Canada, Kristian and Enright.
Hey, this is wonderful to see a huge turnout. This is quite marvelous for poetry. On that note, Mercredi was supposed to be the soul of wit, but I noticed my poem is really embarrassingly long, and I was going to do an abridged. No, okay, I'm not going to do an abridged reading. This was called "Enduring Symbols of Disposability." I had a quote from Rilke. We who worked at the movie theater felt inept when aware of all the waste we accrued. Docile postmodern sculptures left in the fantastic, whimsical living room of our theater, just cups and straws bereft of most kinds of ritual. Prior to settling the projector on, we'd rush in to make a semblance of respectability quickly, so they would not detect our agility as they filed in. Potential critics to be in the endless cycles of consumption and alleviation, as if simple abstractions, but there's somehow material seething indelibly. Behind the screen was an actual chasm where all the garbage went. We served a devilish parody, inert matter cast down to a deeper death than deserved. Many things ought to be a toy forever. My job was at the downtown University of Winnipeg, but was not there to make people forget whatever consequence existed, except catharsis' pity, perhaps. And yet, as if I were my job, I would imagine an odyssey of each object as if tracking its exile to breach the boundaries of comfort zones. Odd to consider that of deserted items, the Holy Grail cup was the one taken by somebody who wished to reuse it, even if convenience did give it to them. How many jobs hide things like this? If the material were only to be recycled, the very gold of capitalism is pissed away as if an indifference rendered in icicles. And when somebody would clean the urinals, we sense capitalism's possible rust intelligibly. To be young and enthralled with facing the future, not being an eroded bust. Taken fully as with Rilke's headless sculpture of awareness, there is no place that does not see you. As if we were making Earth in gassy pollution, a star, as all the half-used satellites revolve around its dying blue. Unlike sensing a plot hole in a movie, gravity is the future. We could be among those who ended the once-used plastic age to regain the symbols of sustainability, the word that has tended the black sheep's activist pastoral, as we worked in soot of times industrial. Here in our theater, I saw a documentary on the huge latent surrender flag screen that made me join an eco-group immediately, a job that seemed exiled from movie scenes and would inspire me towards ecological re-entry. Thank you.
I'm your new introducer. So our next reader will be A.W. Glen, and after that will be Lance. So A.W. Glen.
Hi, I'm Ava. My poem has some edits in it and track changes. So I'm just gonna do a little like cross out when it's crossed out and a little like write in when it's edited. Here we go. This is Last Christmas. In fall 2023, I do freelance proofreading of environmental research papers. I discover that the apocalypse is frequently short on commas, and I add them in for $40 per 2,500 words. Hours a day, I comb for errors, absorb small details, dire warnings in dry language, countries failing to meet NDCs, nationally determined contributions. Acronyms must be used more than 3 times. Define acronyms in first use. I don't know science, just how to read, so I keep reading into things. Oil companies rebranding expensive and inefficient technologies as climate mitigation tactics, getting them paid for by government subsidies, our future generations, and profiting doubly. By the time dirty Winnipeg December freakishly sops into view, bloated and feverish, sticky fluffless snow short on Yuletide cheer, and the whole month groaning witchily about melting, I'm convinced it's the last Christmas, and not in a wham kind of way, though the dread hits me almost onomatopoeically hard. I imagine scientists raging and desperate behind those bland white papers marked boldly confidential on the diagonal, facts delivered emotionless, so their editor, me, does not go into hysterics, print copies on the living room floor, a bleak stamped secrecy be damned, run through downtown, distributing these deeply boring harbingers of doom. Do you know what they're getting away with? Pages scattered, soaking on the too warm, too wet sidewalk, bleeding red track changes. My friends are tenderly annoyed at my prophesying. I've been known to experience anxiety. We've of course agreed the world is ending, but the end might mean something different to them since they keep having babies. I miss the river trail. The Assiniboine gurgles unfrozen through the holidays, but I still need to buy gifts, and I'm grateful the demise I'm convinced of is in want of a spell check. Money-wise, I'm doing quite well. Half-hearted winter coughs a few times, gratefully forfeits into March, and smoky summer passes. December 2024 finds me reading poetry instead, a gentler job. Heaviness shrouded in metaphor, removed of the urgency of jargon. I buy a real tree and tentatively hope for a few more Christmases.
Thank you, Ava. Our next reader is Guilbault. Where did Lance go? Oh, I see you. Okay, let's start cheering.
Tensei, bonjour. When I got on the district as in an totem, I drove in from Fish River Cree Nation today, and they tried to put me in the reserve section. I'm like, so should I use that to my friend over there? Okay, she's like, no, that's a dad joke. 3 important women are here with me today. My partner, Julie, my mom, and one of my best friends, Mary. Yeah, I wrote here and I was published. And it's such an honor. I look through here and read Blue Collar Memories by Duncan. Mercredi, a big mentor in my life as a writer, as an Indigenous writer. And I guess I'll just start. I taught students today climate adversity. I taught students today the fires surrounded us. We could feel the heat as the sweat dripped from foreheads to feet. They continued to write. We sat in a school as the tornado ripped at the roof and pulled our emotional heartstrings. They continued to read. Climate change article was read. Highlighters in action spilling across the page, just as the pipeline spills across the stage. They continued to learn. Despite the torrential waters raining down from the Muskoka, their moccasins filled. They continued to think. The drought dried the air as the faucets dripped. Topsoil windstorm pelted the glass panes, blasting an unknown rhythm. They continued to study. They worry of a future, learning reading, writing about the exploitation of the land, the water, anything we can touch. They asked, how come they don't learn? A question I cannot answer. We have all sorts of questions I cannot answer. English, next step.
Thanks, Lance. I have to echo what Jamie said. It's really incredible to hear people read these poems we've been seeing on paper or screens. Okay, I forgot to say who was next, and the next person happens to be Samantha F. Jones. After Sam is Duncan Mercredi. Is Duncan here? I think Duncan couldn't make it. Okay, after Sam will be Mhao.
Take a sip of my labeled water.
Okay, so the poem I'm going to read is actually co-written between myself and my sister. My sister is named S.J. Jones and I am S.F. Jones, so there you go, we can be confusing. It's called Ruing Fleece, and that refers to how you pull out the fleece from sheep that like naturally throw their wool over the summer, and my sister is a sheep farmer, so I'm not a sheep expert. So hopefully I can represent us well. Brewing fleece. 1, an average year. Part, pull, the break, a release, the wool harvest. Pick, 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 pick. It's time to lay, pick, pick in the field and pick, 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 pick. Thrown fleece as the sheep are ready. 2, a hot year. Part, pull, too late. The break, static. The heat, early. Pick, 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 pick. It's time as soon as the shear is available. Thank you.
My next reader is Mhao Palevino, and after Mhao will be Jamie Paris. Can you see me? This poem is inspired by a kid who asked me the exact question, and this is for all the early childhood educators and the children we care for so much. This is called Turtles, Where Can I See? Can you read this book for me? Of course I will. Of course I will. I love seeing your curious eyes sparkle as I read you the story of the turtle named Turtle. You asked me of his tail, his home, what he eats, and where he roams. As I read each line, all enthusiasm and cheer, your eyes grow big, lost in the story, unaware. More than the message of how the story came to be, you wanted to know, turtles, where can I see? My hands tremble, the pages feel thin. A thought weighs on my chest, but I keep my grin. Little ones, some turtles live in rivers and sea. Some eat mushrooms, berries, and sea jellies. I have seen them before, in blue streams and reefs. Turtle was not there, only the free. Forgive me, there's another truth you should know. The turtles of land and sea are losing their homes, in danger of becoming the stories of tale and age, like pterodactyls left on history's page. For there are also turtles outside of this book. They wear shells too, though not like the turtle's nook.
These turtles are on 2 feet, destroying land and sea. Scoff at every Mac. Why care for turtles, you see? I am sorry to tell you, I know where some of the turtles would be. In water, tangled in scraps, toxic oil on their skin. On land, left in dumps, threatened by turtle sins. Though there remains the future I fear, I know your wonder will light the way, that much is clear. Keep searching for the turtles with all your might. But when faced with turtles, stand up for what is right. And so I pray when you are grown, you will read this book differently than I have shown. You will share the stories of the turtles you have come to see and the turtles you have fought to keep them free. Thank you.
So our next reader is Jamie Paris, and after Jamie will be Marge.
Thank you. This is the second time in my life I've read a poem in front of people. And just to briefly preface it, when I was writing this poem, I was thinking about the amazing work Egon Sinclair is doing at the University of Winnipeg, Sean Carlton is doing at the University of Winnipeg. I was processing my own trauma and grief around the finding of unmarked potential graves all over residential schools in Canada. And word was coming in that Justice Mary Sinclair was passing a true lie in Canada. And it made me wonder, am I doing enough? And why am I doing what I do? Doing reconciliation work in Winnipeg. Is writing about reconciliation integral to the work of forgiveness? Does teaching students about reconciliation help create a more just, fair city? Maybe. But writing and teaching are not enough for Winnipeg to become a kinder, gentler, and more just place. We have to do the work to dance positive peace into being. We're doing the labor of cultivating change. Reconciliation is physically, emotionally, and psychologically exhausting. Learning the truth about colonial violence in Indian residential schools in Canada is distressing. Teaching our history honestly is uncomfortable. Have you ever heard about the time people planted 215 tiny wood craft crosses with orange bows under the pedestal of a toppled queen? Such difficult, careful, emotional work. Each one represented a kidnapped child who should have grown up at home and who ought to have been sent to their parents after their breath was unjustly taken. Beside this loving work of public protest, men slept in a teepee in November, keeping a sacred fire to light the way home for the children and their brave and bereaved families. My labor towards reconciliation began with an uneasy realization that all the kidnapped and abused children, every single one of them, is my kin. Every missing mother, sister, auntie, cousin, every single one of them is my kin, and I have to help them come home. I know what it means to grow up with a mother-sized hole at the dinner table. Reconciliation would be knowing that our losses are temporary, that the missing will return to us spiritually unharmed. Reconciliation work happens because we know that it takes an engaged village to put up flyers, organize good searches, and lobby racist police to serve and honor their commitments. Imagine all the joyful work we could do if we created a just little city where the work of reconciliation became unnecessary. Reconciliation work is dragging the red, slowly and carefully, looking for stolen sisters after the police refused to search for our missing relatives. Reconciliation would look like searching the landfill for the bodies of murdered women and girls, because families deserve closure without having to go on television and beg the provincial government for justice. Reconciliation work looks like a clan of bears walking the North End streets at night, handing out Maximilian and blankets. Reconciliation work tries to rebuild community while preventing the next catastrophe. The work is impossibly difficult, but it might be easier if we do it together.
Last reader I have the pleasure to introduce is Marjorie Poor.
Thank you. My poem is about my day job, which is as an editor with the government. And so it's not immediately obvious that it has anything to do with climate change. But my thinking was that if any level of government is going to address the climate crisis, they're going to have to communicate a lot more clearly and sincerely than they do now. Okay, so it's called Work, Words, Work. After Work, Body Work by Julie Paul and Whiny Baby. I work with words. At work, I fix work of others. I edit, I change. At work, I can't trust anything, least of all my memory. Look up spellings, look up facts, look up references. I look for missing commas, missing periods, missing words. I look for misplaced commas, misplaced colons, misplaced words. I look for misused words, misused commas, misused ellipses. I judge at work, and I find the work of others wanting. I remove nonsense at work. I substitute learners for students. I change comprised of to composed of, utilize to use. I add the following, so colon, they insist on, is correct. I add parentheses, so abbreviations like etc. fit our style guide. I change hyphens to end dashes to mean two or to make super hyphens. I change hyphens to end dashes. Make bulleted lists parallel. I remove extra spaces between sentences. I remove scare quotes around ordinary words. At work, I argue about whether facts can be created, about whether documents need to be socialized, about what a sentence really means, about whether we want to say something or just make up words that no one can understand. At work, I try to figure out what is being said, but sometimes it's just a wild guess. At work, I look for some kind of meaning, some sort of vision to work toward.
All right, so we're on our last batch. So next up, we're gonna have Ron Romanowski, and you won't be surprised because he knew that he's gonna be the first one in my batch. And then after that is Ivan.
Thank you. I'd like to dedicate my reading to all the my fellow postal workers who are getting screwed again. And I'm so happy to be in this anthology. It's just a wonderful bunch of people, and if you get the book, you'll just love it because it's got everything from the most emotional poetry to the technical poetry. It's got everything in it. A reverie, oh Canada, posty winter picket line. Long strike, and I need a contract in my pocket. Use the old one to stuff a pit bull's mouth where dim vicious thought my hand would be. Owners stalk me all down the street. What'd you do to my dog? I'm a postie. And what if I had a contract in my pocket? Crocuses would spring overnight. Leaves unfurl, the sweet news, and grass green, green. When I'd be thumbing, you know, a new contract in my pocket. Quotidian shuffle mountain of mail, flyers upon catalogs. Urgent, open, your $1 million is here. Scented love letters, comforts for the bereaved, grime of day, beat home. But a contract in my pocket. Wind chill would be a bad memory. So what if the spring sands whirlwind, like the Sahara, dust-bagged socks, baked gritty feet, like sliding for home plate all day. I'm a postie, get me a new contract in my pocket. Yeah!
I love how we're getting like the full range of things tonight, right? All different types of poems, all different styles. Awesome. All right, so next up we have Ivan A. Salazar M, and then after that is Sabrina.
Well, we are witnessing the power of the written word and the voices of poets tonight. A day in the life of a worker. At dawn, the city yawns, metallic birds screeching to the rhythm of 1,000 alarms, coffee stains on worn-out jeans. He steps out, a ghost among the living. Concrete jungles, stretching their arms, asphalt rivers flow with noise. Each step a negotiation with the weight of dreams on his back and bills that whisper like old friends. The bus arrives late, as usual, a metal beast, spitting out the worry. Crushed against the glass, faces blurred, hopes crumb. He trades sweat for crumbs, his hands, maps of toil, calluses tell stories of a life lived in margins where the time is currency and rest is a luxury. Lunch is a sandwich, shared with pigeons who know the art of survival. As they pick at the crumbs of yesterday's ambitions, scavenging for meaning, the sun beats down a cruel overseer. Yet he smiles at the absurdity of dreams lodged between subway stops and the laughter of children who play in the shadows of the skyscrapers. At dusk, he returns, not with riches, but with echoes of the city heartbeat, each horn a reminder that he belongs to the noise and the silence that follows. In the quiet of his room, he counts the day in size, wonders if tomorrow will change or if the grind will swallow him whole. Yet tomorrow he will rise, a soldier in the army of the ordinary, fighting for a life in the city that never sleeps.
So next up is Sabrina, Spenser, Smith, and then after that will be Jessica.
Hello, friends. So my poem is about roofing. It's one of those topics I just keep coming back to as a writer. So when I saw the call for submissions for this anthology, I knew I had to write a roofing themed poem. So this poem, and also, yeah, in a past life, I was a roofer, so that's the context. Roofer. The world is burning, and you couldn't catch Roofer dead with a mask on. 2 stories up, he inhales the sky into his tar bags and spits a loogie full of forest. Roofer is another way of saying shit out of luck. The reason Roofer pisses so freely in backyards is because he's always putting out fires. Nails for breakfast, and yet here he is, breathing. It's a miracle, really, and when song is the next thing from his mouth, great balls of fire, and then some old Taylor Swift number, the great flood comes again, and Roofer floats away on his roof. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, so next up is Jessica, Smithies, and then after that will be Hanako.
So this is a poem about a time I was working in a call center during fire season in BC during the Kelowna fires of 2023. It's called Fire Season. The phone is ringing, wind is on the other line. His house is burning. The phone is ringing. She doesn't know what to do. Where do I go now? The phone is running. Interactive fire maps saved to my desktop. The phone is ringing. Coworkers scared for family. Smoke burning my nose. The phone is ringing. Burning questions on their mind. Is this covered? The phone is ringing. They're telling me to stay strong. Tears hold my cheeks. The phone is ringing. Thank you.
So next up is Hanako Teranishi, and then after that is Melanie.
The thing of going last, I think, is you have to sit here and listen to all the wonderful poetry, and you're like, you hear your name, you're like, I gotta go. My palms are sweaty. So here I am. This is a prayer for fish. My palms are pressed together, a moment of prayer for the fish and rice before me. Itadakimasu. I humbly receive this life. Given in this meal, the life I receive from the fish and the sea and all that came before and all that came after. When I come into work, I enter from the back lane, past the garbage and past the bluefin tuna defrosting. The smell of fish meat and bones warm my nose. High quality, it melts on your tongue, is what I'm told to say about Hanako to customers who are struggling to say edamame, or struggle to correct my tongue, or try to connect my tongue because they were in Japan last summer, or to the ones whose eyes gleam at the price. It becomes a luxury to eat a dying population. A group of men order the rest of the Hanako for the table. The pieces are balanced between flowers upon shiso leaves and ice. The platter freezes my fingers. I feel the condensation from the bowl slowly pool into my palm. It weighs upon me with every step. Their eyes sparkle when I place it on the table, and I imagine they must be seeing pieces of pink gold. They drink and swear and snap their fingers at me, shoving glasses into my arms for more drinks. I can see that the ice is melting and the bluefin is starting to sink. Maybe it's something about the lo-fi Japanese evening playlist that carries minds away, or the lack caught in the soft, dim lights that makes it easy enough to forget a prayer. At the end of the night, they leave licking sake and shoyu off their lips. They leave behind the plate of unfinished bluefin and melting ice. 4 pieces left. Ichi, ni, san, shi. An unlucky number, shi, means death. 1 piece falls through the ice and sinks to the bottom. I become a lone pallbearer. Condensation pools into my palms and runs down my arms. Meat and bones reunite in the garbage, adorned with wilting flowers.
Nice home stretch here. So next up will be Melanie, Dennis, Unrau, and then after that is Evan.
So we do have a poem by each of the editors inside the anthology, which is fun. And as part of the workshops, we did some work with haiku. So I found myself writing haiku in the workshops. So this is several haiku stanzas. Anthologist's haiku. Swap anthology for jury duty, still tuned to courtroom, landfill. At workshops, poets count hurricane syllables, tell wildfire stories. Poster is ready, tires crack November puddles, last bike ride this year. Cold snap, no poems, sidewalk, staple gun, sun dogs, no soliciting. An editor's friends, candles, incense, wicked groans of windowsill plants. Walk to the river, look for living things, a fox. She moves under ice. A boycott, a book launch, your lyrics make me weep. I'm not all frozen. Another climate meeting missed, instead shovel spring melt work poems. Forward, forward, hum breakup songs for my career, my friend, the river.
Last but not least in this reading section, we have Evan Woelk Baltzer. He's going to come up and read a piece.
Look at all you lovely people. I know that my heart is not completely melted over because I think the thing that hit me hardest tonight was utilize to use. And that, I don't know, it's beautiful. I'm a grassland conservation biologist, and so this opportunity resonated with me. I'm certainly not a poet, but I guess I'm here, which makes me in good company, and I guess I'm in here. So thanks for having me. This is Into the Coulee, which talks about a scheduled and recurring meeting that I have. On each month's second Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m., I take a Zoom call with a team that all confronts the end. The lead was there 10 years ago when the pastures were undone, and he's watched the birds he's loved so much vanish one by one. But still he sends the link each month. He knows us all by name. We form our screenlit commune there and play the monthly game. In which new way have we lost hope, and how shall we endure? Which species stands at precipice, and are we truly sure? From offices and basement spaces, 20 people gather, a coalition of the few to say these grasslands matter. We know that most, but not quite all, will never stand and hear a pipit's trilling call above or bauble link so clear. So as rare bird song fades from places few and far between, we launch our app and pray the gap has not yet grown too lean. We got one more. And as I close that call each time, I think of my own son, for whom I join that Zoom call, for whom this work is done. Thank you.
Just before we do a last couple of chatting things here, I want to just thank all of you. Thank you to all of the readers. We really appreciate you getting up here, sharing your words. We appreciate you letting us use your poem in the book, trusting us with your words. We appreciate all of the friends and family and community that came here to support each other. This is a beautiful event, full of people even all the way back there, even upstairs. I was thinking, okay. Thank you, Tanya and Fernwood and Roseway. We really appreciate it. Mel, is there anything you would like to say, or should I introduce the next? If Laura Cameron is here and wants to come up and say a few words from the Manitoba Energy Justice Coalition, please do feel free.
Hello, I will keep this brief. I don't have any beautiful poetic words to share, just a few practical ones. So my name is Laura. I am a volunteer organizer with the Manitoba Energy Justice Coalition, and we were kindly invited to co-host or sponsor this event because Mel and a few of the contributors and other folks in this room are involved in MEJC. So this is, we're a grassroots volunteer organizer-led climate justice group here in Winnipeg, and with some folks across the province. We are trying to push for climate and energy justice through various policy avenues and also in the streets. And so we do a lot of work, a lot of unpaid labor related to climate of a specific form. Last week, we were part of a global day of action where there's 20,000 people in the streets across the country. Maybe some of you were there for the Draw the Line rally outside of Premier Canute's constituency office. So anyways, I just wanted to say thank you. I wasn't prepared to be moved as much as I was by all of these readings and by this book. I very much look forward to reading it and sharing it through our circles. And yeah, if anyone is interested in getting involved in the Manitoba Energy Justice Coalition or curious more about the work that we do, we have a sign-up sheet here that Sean brought, and there's also some postcards that will go to Woelk Canoe if you put a stamp on them, or if you leave them here filled out or give them to me. The provincial government is about to release a climate plan in the next couple of weeks, actually, so this is sort of our last push to try to influence that plan so that it's worth something. So we have these worth it campaigns, campaign running about making the plan worth something. And lastly, on October 1st, so this upcoming Wednesday, we're having an intro to climate organizing meeting that MEJC and the Climate Action Team are supporting, grassroots folks getting together. So if you're interested and you've never been involved in organizing, or you want to maybe come out and see what's up, that would be a great time. It'll be 7 p.m. at First Mennonite Church, and I regret that I think there's a few little flyers here. So yeah, take one or take a photo and let me know if you have any questions, but thanks so much.
I think that brings us to our closing remarks and final announcements. So is Charlene here? Yes, would you come up and let us know any special things we need to know before chaos happens?
Good
Thank you. Yes.
The best.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charlene Deal, and I'm the Executive Director of Plum Winnipeg. We are the host organization for the Thin Air Festival, and this is the second last event of this year's festival, no, the third last. And we are really just so delighted to be part of this, a co-presenter of this event. What a spectacular evening. I think it would make sense if all of you who read would just stand so we can make a big noise for you. So if you read, stand up. It's been an amazing night. I was really kind of wondering, how will this work? Because that's a lot of people. But I think probably I'm not alone, that the wide range of voices is very inspiring, and I could feel that we were all kind of with you in that spectrum between rage, sorrow, and determination. So thank you all for taking us on that kind of a trip. I was thinking about how writing is such a solitary undertaking, and when you gather many voices into an anthology, suddenly you had this very strong sense of collective and community, and what we heard tonight was this huge range of voices that are all hollering in such eloquent ways, and this is how we make change. We feel like we are part of a community of people. So it's wonderful that you're all here and that you all care and that you're all going to take this anthology with you and you're going to make 5 people read it. Does that sound reasonable? Because ultimately, I think how we tell stories, how we share our understanding of things is how we make change. Ultimately, this is how we change the world. And yes, when we are in crisis, one part of us wants to stop and hide. But when we know we belong to others who are inspired and determined, then we can change the world. And so we must, because we have no alternative. So a big thanks to the Land and Labor Poetry Collective. I think this is a spectacular accomplishment, this anthology. I'll get right on it. And I think it's so important to be talking about work and also about how work connects with our current climate crisis. These are both really essential things. A big round of applause for our hosts, Samantha Jones, Jamie Paris, and Melanie, Dennis, Unrau. Let's do it. You nailed it. Not the easiest thing to do. Big thanks to Fernwood and the Manitoba Energy Justice Coalition for really making this possible. I wanted to invite you to a couple of things that are ahead for us in our, well, wait, there's one more thing, which is we are gathered in a most amazing space. And when we think about being part of community and about the sharing of voices and stories and perspectives, no place is more important than a bookstore, especially one that is so welcoming and so determined to support community. So let's have a big shout out for McNally Robinson. Traveled it all across Canada, you know, this place is a rare place. And so we keep coming here and appreciating what it is and the welcome that it gives us. And I'd just like to take a second to shout out John, who hides behind everything but makes everything go smooth. The festival ends tomorrow, and we have 2 events, but one of them is here that I'd love you to come back for. It's called Mijote Stories, and it's named for beloved elder Theodore Mijote Fontaine, who has been just an extraordinary force to create community here. I miss him, many people miss him, but his energy continues to forge really important forward paths. Our guest this year is Bruce McIver, who is an Indigenous advocate and lawyer. He's the author of Indigenous Rights in 1 Minute, What You Need to Know to Talk Reconciliation. And here we are on the eve, practically, of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And this is a project that we initiated at the festival several years ago to bring community together to have these really important conversations. So he'll be here on Sunday afternoon in conversation with Sheila North. It's going to be a beautiful hour of bracing conversation, probably a few laughs, because if you know this community, you know that hard things always come with joy and big heart. So 1:30 p.m., please come back. And we also have a few things just coming up after the festival is done. And the first one is actually next Friday, so not even a week ago. I'm barely going to have rested enough for this, but Thomas Wharton is coming in from Edmonton, and he'll be in conversation with Ben Sigurdsson on Friday. On October 21st, which is a Tuesday, Savanka Muthamavongsa, who's a really splendid writer, will be in conversation with Lindsay Wong. And then Duncan Mercredi, who is not here tonight, and his launch was postponed, so some of you may even have wanted to come here earlier this week. I'm really happy to say that it's been rescheduled for Sunday, October 26th at 2 p.m. and he'll be in conversation with everyone's favorite cousin, Rosanna Deerchild. That's going to be a really an incomparable hour. I think that's all I can describe that. So check out McNally's newsletters and website and come back over and over again. And now that's the last of my announcement sort of thing. So I'm going to say, this is the fun part. So all those people who stood up and admitted that they had contributed to the anthology will be happy to sign, but it's going to be sort of bedlam, I think, but in a good way, right? We all love a bit of bedlam now and then. So signing is informal, which means grab a copy of the book and then collar somebody who's in it and ask them to sign it. So it's going to be a little bit like a pinball machine in here, I think. That's good, right? That's going to be fun. The only rule is that you have to pay for the book before you exit the store. So the craziness sort of stays in this area and then head to the cash desk. Reasonable? Okay, one more huge round of applause for these amazing performances. Here you go.
Don't sneak away, come sign my book before you leave. If you're a contributor, get collect everyone.